Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the core concepts of JavaScript. And the best way to think about it is like you're learning a brand new language. We'll start with the basics, your first words, and work all the way up to writing a full-on essay.
So here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with your very first words, then build up our vocabulary. After that, we'll get into crafting complete thoughts, organizing all those ideas, and even tackling some of the mind-bending grammar. And we'll wrap it all up by learning how to write a really clean essay in code.
All right, let's jump in. So, just like any language, your journey starts with that very first word. And in programming, that means getting the computer to actually listen to you, to talk back. This is where it all begins.
And this idea is so important. Think about it. JavaScript is a lot like English. It's got its own vocabulary, its own grammar. We're essentially learning how to put those things together to build sentences, or, in our world, instructions that a computer can actually understand and execute.
So, what's our first word? It's console.log. If you've ever heard developers talk about hello world, well, this is it. It's a command that's already built into JavaScript, and all it does is tell the computer, hey, print this out for me. It's our direct line, our first conversation with the machine. And getting started is, well, it's surprisingly simple. Seriously, you just make a file, type that one little command, save it, and run it from your terminal. We use a tool called Node.js to do this outside of a browser. And boom, 4 steps. That's it. You've just written your first program. You've officially had a conversation with your computer. Okay, so we've said hello. Now it's time to actually build up our vocabulary. And in the world of code, that means figuring out how to store and label information. We do that with things called variables, and we also need to understand the different types of data we're going to be using. The easiest way to picture a variable is to think of it like a bucket. It's just a bucket sitting in the computer's memory where you can stash some information, and you slap a label on that bucket, a name. Then, whenever you need what's inside, you just call it by its name. Simple as that. Now, to make one of these variable buckets, you have to use a special keyword. For a long time, that keyword was var. But honestly, it had some weird quirks, some behaviors that could lead to some really frustrating bugs. So today, the modern way, the way we all should be doing it, is to use the keyword let. It's just way more predictable and a whole lot safer. So what kind of stuff can we put in these buckets? Well, you've got your basic building blocks. You've got numbers for, doing math. You've got strings, which is just a fancy word for text. Then you have booleans, which are just true or false. And finally, there's undefined. That's just the state of a variable, a bucket, before you've actually put anything inside it. All right, we've got some vocabulary now, so we can move beyond single words and start crafting complete thoughts. In code, a thought is usually a repeatable action. And we package those actions into things called functions. You can think of them as the verbs, the action words of our new language. And this, right here, is where coding starts to feel like a superpower. Because instead of typing out the same lines of code over and over again, you can bundle them up into a neat, reusable package called a function. You just give it a name, and then whenever you need that job done, you just call its name. It's so much more efficient. Let's take an example. Imagine a function named calculateTax. You hand it one piece of info, right? The amount. The function does its thing, does the math, and then that return keyword, that's how it hands the answer back to you. It's how a function says, here, I did the work, here's the result. Okay, so as our ideas get bigger and our programs get more complicated, we need better ways to organize everything. Just having a bunch of variables floating around gets messy fast. Luckily, JavaScript gives us 2 amazing tools for this. Arrays, which are basically just lists, and objects, which are perfect for detailed descriptions. An array is probably the simplest way to group stuff together. It's really just an ordered list. Think of it like a to-do list, or maybe your top 5 movies. In this example, it's just a list of facts about a car. It's a collection of different things, all neatly packaged under a single variable name. And here's where we hit a really key difference. See, an array is a list of many things, but an object is all about describing one single thing and a whole lot of detail. It's a container for all the related bits and pieces of information about that one element. Just look at the difference. It's huge. Instead of a simple list of values, an object uses these named labels. We call them properties. Things like make, model, and year. This gives our data so much more meaning. Now you're not just looking at the string BMW, you know that's the make of the car. It adds context.
Every single language has its weird grammar rules, right? The stuff that just kind of bends your brain at first. Well, in JavaScript, two of the most famous head-scratchers are scope and the keyword this. So let's pull back the curtain and figure these out. Okay, first up is scope. And what is scope? Well, it answers a really simple but totally crucial question. I just made a variable. Where can I actually use it in my code? And the answer to that comes down to a very important rule. The best analogy I've ever heard is to think of it like a one-way mirror. The code that's inside a function can look out and see all the variables that were created outside of it. But, and this is the important part, the code on the outside can't peek in and see the variables that were made inside. It's a one-way street, and that's a good thing. It stops our variables from accidentally messing with each other. All right, and now it's time for what is maybe the most famous, most confusing little word in all of JavaScript, this. What in the world is this even talking about? Okay, here is the absolute key you need to remember. The value of this is not set in stone. It changes. It all depends on the context, specifically how a function is being called. We call this the call site. So if a function is part of an object, this will point to that object. If it's just called on its own, this can point somewhere else entirely. Where it's called from determines everything. All right. We've got our words, our sentences, our paragraphs. Now we need to put it all together and write a clean, well-structured essay. And in JavaScript, that means organizing our code to avoid a really common headache in big projects, what we call naming collisions. So, one really clever way to solve this is with something called the module pattern. Now, how does it work? Well, it uses a special kind of function that actually runs itself the moment it's created. What this does is it creates a private, protected little world, a private scope. All the variables and functions inside are totally hidden from everything else. Then, the function can choose to return an object that only exposes the very specific parts you want to be public. It's kind of like building a little fortress around your code with just one well-guarded gate. So think about how far we've come. We went from a single word, console.log, all the way to a sophisticated way to organize our entire application. You now have the fundamental grammar of JavaScript. You've got the tools to create, to organize, and to structure your ideas. So the only question left is, what story are you going to write?